The South China Sea. A stretch of ocean that looks calm on the surface, but beneath its waves, the future of the world is being decided. It is here that the United States and China face off in a contest that is bigger than territory, bigger than borders. This is about dominance, survival, and the power to shape the 21st century. For centuries, these waters were little more than trade routes and fishing grounds. But today, they have become one of the most contested regions on Earth. More than 1/3 of all global trade passes through these lanes. Tankers filled with oil, cargo ships carrying electronics, and freighters loaded with food and resources. Every day, trillions of dollars move through the South China Sea. Beneath the seabed lie untapped reserves of oil and natural gas, along with some of the richest fishing waters in the world. To Beijing, the South China Sea is more than geography. It is security. It is a buffer zone against foreign powers. And it is the stage upon which China asserts its return as a global superpower. To Washington, the South China Sea is freedom of navigation, a test of international law, and the front line of America's presence in Asia. To abandon it would be to surrender global leadership. And so, these two powers move closer to collision. China claims nearly the entire South China Sea through its infamous 9-dash line. This sweeping claim covers thousands of islands, reefs, and shoals. Over the past decade, Beijing has built artificial islands, dredging sand to create military bases in the middle of the ocean. Airstrips stretch across reefs. Radar installations tower above waves. Missile systems lie in wait. These are not fishing villages. These are fortresses. The United States rejects these claims. With its allies, Japan, the Philippines, Australia, it sails through contested waters under what it calls freedom of navigation operations. To Washington, these waters are international. No nation should control them. But every maneuver carries risk. American destroyers pass within miles of Chinese frigates. Fighter jets from both sides shadow each other in the skies. Submarines lurk in the depths, playing a deadly game of cat and mouse. The world has already witnessed close calls, near collisions, radar lock-ons, tense standoffs. A single mistake could turn tension into war. This is not the first time America and China have clashed. Their rivalry has deep roots. After World War II, the United States emerged as the dominant power in the Pacific. With aircraft carriers, bases in Japan and the Philippines, and alliances across Asia, Washington controlled the seas. China, weakened by civil war and foreign invasion, played no role. But over the decades, Beijing rebuilt. From the 1970s economic reforms to its 21st century boom, China transformed into the world's second-largest economy. And with wealth came ambition. By the 2000s, China began building a navy that could rival America's. Once a coastal defense force, the People's Liberation Army Navy grew into the largest naval fleet in the world by ship count. Carriers, destroyers, nuclear submarines, and advanced missile systems, China was no longer content to defend its shores. It wanted to project power. And where better to begin than the South China Sea? The clash between America and China is not only about ships and planes. It is about vision. Beijing seeks to push foreign powers out of its neighborhood, to establish a Chinese century. Washington seeks to contain that rise, to preserve the international order it built after 1945. This is why analysts call it the New Cold War. But unlike the Cold War with the Soviet Union, this rivalry is far more complex. The US and China are economically intertwined. Billions in trade flow between them every day. American companies depend on Chinese factories. Chinese firms rely on American technology. They are rivals, yet partners. This interdependence makes conflict unthinkable, and yet, increasingly possible. Flashpoints appear again and again. In 2012, the Scarborough Shoal standoff between China and the Philippines drew the United States into regional defense commitments. In 2016, an international tribunal in The Hague ruled against China's expansive claims. Beijing ignored it. In 2018, the USS Decatur, a U.S. destroyer, nearly collided with a Chinese warship, a confrontation that could have sparked open conflict. And then, Taiwan. Though not directly in the South China Sea, the island is central to the rivalry. Beijing views Taiwan as a breakaway province that must be reunited with the mainland, by force if necessary. Washington, while not officially recognizing Taiwan as independent, provides it with weapons and promises of support. Every arms deal, every military exercise, fuels Beijing's fury. To China, Taiwan is a red line. To America, Taiwan is a symbol of resistance. Beyond territory, the US-China rivalry extends into technology. China invests billions in artificial intelligence, hypersonic missiles, and cyber capabilities. Its military strategy focuses on anti-access area denial, weapons, systems designed to keep American carriers and jets far away. The United States counters with stealth aircraft, nuclear submarines, and missile defense. It invests in cyber warfare, space-based surveillance, and quantum computing. The battlefield is no longer just land, sea, and air. It is digital. It is orbital. It is everywhere. Economics form another layer of conflict. China's Belt and Road Initiative builds ports, railways, and highways across Asia, Africa, and Europe, extending Beijing's influence. The US responds with alliances, sanctions, and trade restrictions. The most critical battleground: semiconductors. These tiny chips power everything from smartphones to fighter jets. America seeks to block China's access to advanced chips, while China races to develop its own technology. Caught in the middle are smaller nations. Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, all have claims in the South China Sea. All rely on its waters for food and trade. But they walk a tightrope between two giants. Some lean toward Beijing's economic power. Others depend on America's military shield. None want to be the battlefield of a superpower war. For ordinary people, the stakes are invisible, yet immense. Fishermen risk harassment or arrest. Traders worry about shipping disruptions. Nations fear being drawn into conflict not of their choosing. For the world, a war here could be catastrophic. Global supply chains would shatter. Energy routes would collapse. Economies would spiral into chaos. And yet, neither Washington nor Beijing backs down. War games continue. Bases expand. Alliances harden. Both sides declare they do not seek war, but their actions tell another story. Imagine the scenario: a US destroyer and a Chinese frigate collide. Shots are fired. Jets scramble. Missiles launch. What begins as an accident spirals into escalation. Would America strike Chinese bases? Would China target US carriers? Would cyberattacks cripple satellites, cities, economies? Within hours, the South China Sea could ignite into the world's most dangerous conflict since World War II. And yet, despite the risks, the rivalry is not going away. It is rooted too deeply, in economics, in ideology, in power. This is more than a clash of navies. It is a clash of destinies. China seeks to reclaim what it calls its rightful place as a global leader, ending what it remembers as a century of humiliation by foreign powers. The United States seeks to preserve the order it built, where seas are open and power is balanced. These visions cannot easily coexist. The South China Sea has become the symbol of this struggle. A flashpoint, a boiling point, a place where war is possible, but peace is essential. For now, the world watches. The ships patrol. The jets fly. The diplomats negotiate. But history teaches one lesson: great power rivalries rarely end quietly. The question is not whether America and China will continue to compete. The question is how far they will go. Will this be a Cold War fought with words, trade, and technology? Or will it erupt into a hot war fought with missiles, carriers, and blood? The answer lies somewhere in these waters. The South China Sea is calm on the surface. But beneath, the storm is already building.